Hello everyone and welcome to Sipz and Stories. My name is Elizabeth and in today's video I will finally be doing my Christmas holiday TBR. My apologies for posting this video so late. I am still in flux, which is why you do not see Christmas decorations behind me. But I do have access to a lot of my favorite Christmassy books and some really special editions. So grab your favorite beverage as I discuss my holiday TBR. So the first book that I have to share with you, and it's finally here at last, and that is Snow White and the Grimm's Fairy Tales, which is the MinaLima edition, part of the MinaLima Children's Classics interactive editions, which I've been collecting for the past couple of years. I'm so happy to have this book now. I love it. I have to say it is probably one of my favorites of the entire MinaLima collection, and that is really saying something. I think because we are all so familiar with some of these stories like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Rapunzel, you can imagine what MinaLima did for this edition. Each of these interactive elements and illustrations is even more special than the last. I love them. I especially love that this edition includes a lot of representation for modern audiences and modern children, which is why I think this would make a great Christmas gift. So I think kids today will see themselves in one of these stories. Each one has a different ethnicity. They're also set in unique locations around the world, which makes them very cosmopolitan and kind of adds a little modern twist to these stories as well. As I said, I will show you some close-up shots because each one of these illustrations and interactive elements is fantastic, and MinaLima of course chose to highlight some of those really famous scenes and parts of the story that we are all familiar with, like the Frog Prince and the slipper from Cinderella and Hansel and Gretel's house and Sleeping Beauty and the Magic Mirror. So you can just imagine how special this one is. And I have never actually read the Grimm's Fairy Tales. Now that I have access to the MinaLima editions of the Hans Christian Andersen and the Grimm's Fairy Tales, I'll have to do a separate project on both of these editions and the fairy tales in general. I think that would make a great project for the new year. But it is exciting to go back and read the originals of some of our favorites, like Cinderella, like Snow White, and then also to read ones that I have never read before but I've heard of, such as Rumpelstiltskin and Hansel and Gretel. And there's even a couple in here that I've actually never heard of, such as the 12 Huntsmen and the Traveling Musicians and Mother Holle. So this is going to be just a fantastic experience this holiday season. And again, I think this really special MinaLima edition of the Grimm's Fairy Tales would make an excellent Christmas gift for children and book lovers like myself. This next book is really special to me. It's actually one of my favorites in my entire book collection, and that is this folio edition of 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. So as you can see, you can probably tell why it's one of my favorites, because the jacket, the slipcase, is actually a Dalmatian coat. Love this. So this edition is really special to me. I will show you some close-up shots, of course, but I actually received this as a Christmas gift myself a couple years ago. And as much as I looked at the pages and fondled the pages and smelled it, I never actually went back and reread 101 Dalmatians until this year. And it is such a fantastic story. It is perfect for the holidays. At first, I thought those Christmassy scenes were only in the Walt Disney movie, which I love as well, but Dodie Smith did set this book during the holidays, in the snow, in the winter weather, as Pongo and the Misses try to help the puppies escape from the evil Cruella de Vil, and they stage that daring escape across the countryside in the snow. So it's perfect to read at this time of year if you are new to it or you want to introduce it to this next generation of children. And if you can get your paws on this very special folio edition, I highly recommend it. Folios are quite pricey, but this one, just absolutely one of my favorite books in my collection. This book is also really special to me and is one that I picked up recently, and that is this new facsimile edition of the original Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which was published in 1843. The reason that this is a bit of book serendipity for me is that I was just literally there. I was at the Charles Dickens Museum. I did see the first edition of A Christmas Carol. They had it on display at the museum. I will show you some close-up shots if you don't believe me. But as you can see, it looks exactly like this facsimile edition. I picked this up though here at home in Washington, actually at the Half Price bookstore, and I've seen it at several Half Price bookstores throughout the area, so you might want to go online and see if you can track down a copy because it is so worth it. I think the publisher is Arcturus if you are searching for it. But what makes this book so special is that not only does it look aesthetically like the first edition of The Christmas Carol, but it also includes a lot of scans of Charles Dickens' notes in the original manuscript, a lot of supplemental material, some of those original pen and ink illustrations, some of them are even in color. So what is not to love about this really special edition of A Christmas Carol, which is always a perfect read at this time of year? The next few books that I have to share with you are actually Christmas short story collections or Christmas anthologies. My favorite Christmas anthology is Christmas with Anne by Ellen Montgomery. Ellen Montgomery is my favorite writer, so I'll just give a little shout out to that one. That is my favorite one. That's the one I reread every year since I was a teenager. But every time I'm in bookstores, both new bookstores and used bookstores, I always kind of flip through the Christmassy anthology books because I've never come across one that was bad. Christmas stories are perfect for this time of year to read with a cup of cocoa, with a little Christmas ASMR video behind you or next to the Christmas tree. And they really do put you in that Christmas spirit. This one, Christmas in My Heart, which is edited by Joe Wheeler, is really good as well. It features a lot of great classic Christmassy stories, both old and new. I've been reading them this week and a lot of them are sappy, of course. Some are better than others, but who doesn't like a certain amount of sap and schmaltz at this time of year? It also includes, which is why I think I purchased it, a gift of The Magi by O. Henry, which is a Christmas story, very classic, which I've never read, but have been meaning to every year. So that's why I did pick up this edition. But it turns out that all the stories in this anthology are really heartwarming and fantastic for this time of year. I love it. The next Christmas collection that I picked up recently was Stories for Christmas in the Festive Season. This is one I actually got in London, surprise, surprise, but I picked it up at the British Library because it is part of the British Library Women's Writers series. Say that 10 times fast, but I love this series. I love the aesthetics of the series with the profile of the women, and each one of the books that I've read in this series so far has been fantastic, at least a 5 or a 4-star read. So I really want to go back and collect all of them because not only are they really pretty, but they're just really fantastic books. They're all set at the early part of the 20th century, so from 1900 to the 1950s, and they're just reprinted classics by some of these really fantastic female authors. So as you can imagine, this collection also features a lot of fantastic female authors, and all these stories really tend to deal with women and women's perspective of Christmas, which, as you can imagine, with all the responsibilities that entails, is a lot different than men and children. So I love this one a lot. The first story in it is hilarious. It's about this wife and mother who just completely refuses to do Christmas. She's not shopping, she's not cooking, she's not doing anything, and just how her family reacts to that. I love that one. Fantastic book, and I highly recommend it for this time of year. The next short story collection is one that is really special to me in my heart, and that is Little House on the Prairie Christmas Stories. This is a part of the Little House on the Prairie chapter books series. This series takes stories from the Little House on the Prairie books and kind of cuts them up into short stories for younger audiences and younger children. So if you're one of those people that would like to share some of these stories of Laura and Mary and Jack and Pa with younger audiences and little kids, these chapter books are perfect because they break the chapter books into short stories that you can read probably in one sitting like a picture book. I love this one because it's all Christmas stories, and as you know, Little House on the Prairie just has some of the best Christmas scenes and Christmas stories, just like Anne of Green Gables, just like Betsy and Tacy. Of course, it does include that famous one where Mr. Edwards plays Santa Claus for Laura and Mary one year when they are snowed in on the prairie and Mom and Pa cannot buy them any Christmas presents. So I love that story. I'm actually kind of saving that story for as we get closer to Christmas, maybe Christmas Eve perhaps. It's that good. Love this and cannot wait to collect more in the Little House on the Prairie chapter books series for younger readers. Next up is a classic children's book that I had no intention of reading this year until I saw this really special edition at a used bookstore, and I just had to have it. Not only is that cover really Christmassy, but Louisa May Alcott is a very Christmassy author as well, and that is 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott. If you are familiar with Little Women, of course, the very first chapter, the very first scene in Little Women takes place at Christmas time. This is the perfect time of year to reread Little Women. But if you'd like to read something different by this author, I do recommend this series as well. 8 Cousins is a lot of fun. It's about a little orphan girl named Rose who is being raised by her uncle, and she just happens to have 8 boy cousins. So again, I do think there are a lot of great Christmassy scenes in this book, specifically a lot of great winter scenes. I think there is a lot of like sleigh rides and snowball fights and that type of thing. Love this series, and I love that I found this really unique Junior Deluxe edition of this book. I have never seen a Junior Deluxe edition with its original dust jacket, so I am very upset that someone put a sticker on it because it is so rare to find a Junior Deluxe edition with the original dust jacket because they're so delicate and very thin and papery. Just to give you an idea, here is what most Junior Deluxe editions look like. They often just look like naked hardbacks. So again, I'm so excited that I found one with its original dust jacket. And 8 Cousins is the perfect book to read during the holiday season. And finally, wrapping things up with a bit of humor, and that is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. So yes, I do not know why I've never read this book before. It's been on my TBR for years. I think, like many people, it's because I've watched the movie so much. So I've probably seen the movie half a dozen times with Renee Zellweger and Colin Firth and Hugh Grant. And as much as I love the movie, it's a lot of fun. Now that I'm reading the book, I think it's even better because of Helen Fielding's writing. She is just one of the funniest writers I have ever come across, almost at the PG Woodhouse level, but a little meaner, a little naughtier. But she's so good. I have just been reading this every night with a glass of wine and just laughing. So again, if you've only ever seen the movie, please go back and read the book because it'll just really put you in a good mood. If you're in the need of a laugh, this is the perfect book to read. I also wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite booktubers, Lauren in the Books. I don't really talk about her on this channel, but she is by far one of my favorite booktubers just because of her sense of humor, David, cozy reading night. I love her. And I know that this is one of her favorite books, so I just want to give a shout out to her because yes, I'm finally reading it at last, and Lauren was so right about this book. Thank you everyone for joining me for my holiday Christmas TBR. I am so excited to be reading all of these holiday books right now. They're really putting me in the Christmas spirit, especially when I can't decorate. So I love them. Some of them are old favorites like 101 Dalmatians and A Christmas Carol. And some of them are new favorites, like Bridget Jones's Diary. I highly recommend that new edition of Grimm's Fairy Tales by MinaLima. I think that one in particular would make the perfect Christmas present for kids and adults. And it might be a little too late to buy it online, but certainly plenty of time to pick that one up in the stores. Thank you everyone, and have a great day. Happy holidays.